The story begins when a recent college graduate, Choi Yi-jae, goes to attend a job interview. His girlfriend Jisoo cheers him on, but on the way, Yi-jae sees a man hit by a car, a shock that wrecks his focus during the interview. His application is rejected, and he never imagined that that day would change the next 7 years of his life. The arrival of the COVID outbreak makes finding work even harder, and he's forced to take odd jobs just to pay off his hefty student loans. While his friends achieve various successes, Yi-jae can't move forward. His dream isn't grand. He only wants a steady income and a family like everyone else, but he keeps failing to land stable work. After 7 years of this, Yi-jae finally becomes one of the final candidates in the selection process at the famous Taekang Corporation in 2023. While waiting for the interview results, Yi-jae learns that an investment program he joined was a scam. All his savings are gone, and his dream of marrying Jisoo grows more distant. His heart breaks when he sees Jisoo with another man, and he ends the relationship on the spot. He blames himself, feeling useless and like a burden to her. Yi-jae's suffering continues. His landlord evicts him for unpaid rent, and all his possessions are thrown out and soaked by rain. To make matters worse, Taekang informs him that he failed the final selection. Lost and terrified about his future, Yi-jae falls into despair and decides to end his life by jumping off a building, just as his phone rings with a call from his mother. But his decision doesn't solve anything. Miraculously, he wakes up on a private jet, finding himself in someone else's body. A woman who claims to be the incarnation of death takes him to the afterlife and tells him he must be punished for committing a great sin. As punishment for mocking death, Yi-jae must experience 12 more deaths in different reincarnated bodies. If he can survive in any one of those bodies, he will be allowed to continue the rest of his life in that body. Death won't make the challenge easy. Yi-jae's first host body is Jin Tae-tae, the CEO of Taekang. A crystal floats into the air and sinks into his head, and Yi-jae absorbs all the memories of his new incarnation. With Jin Tae-tae's wealth and standing, he initially feels excited about living again. But soon he must die. The plane he's on explodes, and he awakens before the gates of hell, where death is waiting. Yi-jae is furious. He doesn't even know how to avoid a plane crash, but that's the point of the challenge, and he must figure it out himself. Yi-jae interprets the ordeal like a death game, using video game analogies. Essentially, the bodies he occupies are lives already being played out. Their progress is saved to a kind of safe game. Yi-jae is granted access to that save file, and if he can produce a different ending for that reincarnation, he may continue living in that new body. Yi-jae still has 11 bodies left to inhabit before completing his punishment. Death takes him to hell to show him just how terrifying the place is, wanting to teach him that hell is far more agonizing than any hardship in the living world. With a pistol loaded with 12 bullets, Death shoots Yi-jae, sending him into his next life. His second reincarnation is as an extreme sports enthusiast. From this body, Yi-jae learns that he doesn't just inherit the memories of his reincarnation, but also their talents. His new body is in the middle of a free fall without a parachute, attempting to set a world record, while also serving as a distraction ordered by someone to cover up a criminal case. His mission is to land on a prepared spot. If successful, the sponsoring company would reward him with 3 billion won. Unfortunately, Yi-jae's landing fails, and he once again returns to the afterlife. Frustrated, Yi-jae asks what sin could warrant such punishment. Death explains that the sin of ending his own life is already grave, but there are even greater sins beyond that. Yi-jae insists that he hasn't committed any sin other than suicide, proving that he still hasn't learned anything from his punishment. Yi-jae's third body is that of a high school student named Hyuk-soo, who took his own life after constant bullying at school. After absorbing his memories, Yi-jae comes to understand that Hyuk-soo had been bottling up his pain, not wanting to worry his mother or add to her burdens. The bully tormenting him, a boy named Jin-sang, isn't as strong as he appears. With newfound courage, Yi-jae manages to fight back against him easily. However, Jin-sang has a tough ally protecting him, someone Yi-jae can't defeat. When Yi-jae returns to Hyuk-soo's home, he realizes the boy grew up without a father, just like himself. The moment turns emotional when Yi-jae has dinner with Hyuk-soo's mother, reminding him of his own mom. He misses her dearly, but he can't bring himself to face her again under these circumstances. The next day at school, Yi-jae approaches Tae-seok, the tough student from before, and convinces him to join his plan to take down Jin-sang. Yi-jae knows Tae-seok despises Jin-sang, who only acts tough because his older upperclassman always shields him. With this shared resentment, they agree to work together. The first step Yi-jae takes is humiliating Jin-sang. When he pours a bowl of soup over Jin-sang's head, Tae-seok just watches, refusing to obey Jin-sang's orders to chase Yi-jae. Instead, he mocks him, making Jin-sang a laughingstock in front of everyone. Desperate, Jin-sang begs his upperclassman for revenge, but the senior is shocked to learn that the one who humiliated Jin-sang was just an ordinary, nerdy-looking student. Not wanting to ruin his pride as a real man, he refuses to fight someone like that. This incident severs Jin-sang's connection with the strongest figure in the school, who no longer wants to associate with him out of sheer embarrassment. With his power stripped, Jin-sang becomes an easy target. Tae-seok unleashes all his pent-up anger on him, and to make matters worse, Jin-sang's girlfriend leaves him for another guy. Humiliated and broken, Jin-sang retaliates against Yi-jae. Catching him off guard, he brutally beats him to death, sending Yi-jae back to the afterlife once again. At this point, Yi-jae begins to question whether he can ever truly escape hell's torment, because everything he has done so far feels meaningless. He starts to believe that death is punishing him just for amusement. Enraged by this claim, Death strikes him down violently, declaring that she never lies or toys with punishments. Before sending him back to the living world, Death warns Yi-jae never to take his own life again during his sentence, or the pain he'll suffer will be far worse. Yi-jae's suffering continues when he awakens in his next body, being interrogated in the most brutal way imaginable. This time, he inhabits the body of Ju-hoon, a member of a secret organization caught stealing a massive sum of money from his boss, and trying to run away with his lover to escape a life of crime. As Ju-hoon's final memories flood into him, Yi-jae learns that the man had hidden 10 billion won from his boss and was ready to start a new life with the woman he saved. With Ju-hoon's fighting skills, Yi-jae tries to break free from his captors. After a bloody brawl, he escapes on a motorbike from the shipping container he was locked inside, but assassins are dispatched from every direction to hunt him down. What follows is an intense chase through the city, crashing into malls filled with people and ending with Yi-jae leaping off a building into a swimming pool, barely surviving a series of near-death encounters. Eventually, he reunites with the woman he risked everything to save at a dock. She embraces him tenderly, filling him with hope, only to betray him moments later. After learning the location of the hidden money, she shoots him without hesitation. All his efforts are wasted. Back in the afterlife, Yi-jae screams in rage. Death laughs at his naivety, mocking him for being so gullible. But to Death's surprise, Yi-jae admits he had already suspected this outcome. He realized that his reincarnations always occur in the same timeline and setting, meaning he still has a chance to reclaim Ju-hoon's 10 billion won. The stash was hidden in a place only accessible by boat, known only to Ju-hoon himself. Yi-jae's ordeal continues when he reincarnates into a young man named Tae-sang, who is about to be released from prison. From Tae-sang's memories, Yi-jae learns that he had once been an aspiring MMA fighter, but gave up on his dream because of his family's financial struggles. To earn money, Tae-sang accepted a dangerous job, taking the blame for someone else who had hit a girl with a car, leaving her in a coma. The payment was huge, and since Tae-sang was underage at the time, he believed he would get off with probation. But at the trial, the victim was declared dead, and Tae-sang was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Yi-jae's worlds collide when he discovers one of his cellmates is none other than Jin-sang, the very same bully who drove his third body, Hyuk-soo, to suicide. Among the inmates, Jin-sang has a reputation as a deranged psychopath feared by everyone, but Yi-jae, furious, quickly exposes him for who he really is, a pathetic coward who couldn't even fight back against a nerd. The truth comes out. Jinsung had only been pretending to be a madman so others wouldn't mess with him. Now exposed, his facade crumbles, and he receives the punishment he deserves for deceiving so many people. With only 4 days left until his release, Yijai faces an unexpected problem. The inmates in his cell begin to hunt him down. It turns out that Taisang had once threatened the client who hired him to take the prison sentence, demanding more money for the time he sacrificed behind bars. Instead of yielding, the man put a bounty on his head, promising a reward to any prisoner who could eliminate Taisang before his release. Despite this, Yijai endures with sheer determination and survives until the end. Once freed, he meets with the client, vowing to stay silent about their past arrangement. He then retrieves the 10 billion won hidden away, splitting the money in half and stashing the rest in a train station locker. But on his way home, tragedy strikes. He is stabbed by the father of the hit-and-run victim, who believes Yijai himself was the culprit, never knowing he was only the stand-in. Though he survives the attack, another danger soon arrives, a fellow inmate who once seemed like a loyal friend. In truth, this man had been ordered by the real perpetrator to silence him, fearing that Yijai might expose the truth. Yijai dies just as Taisang's mother calls her son's phone, a voice that painfully reminds him of his own mother. He awakens in the afterlife in tears, devastated. He never expected the victim's father to take revenge on him, and anger consumes him for not realizing it sooner. Death, however, coldly explains that he never would have realized it because he is selfish, always thinking only of himself. Now Death wants to teach him a harsher lesson, that suicide doesn't just end one's own life, but deeply wounds those left behind. Just as the grieving father was driven to vengeance for his daughter, those left behind by Yijai's suicide were equally torn apart. Because Yijai has failed to learn anything from his punishment so far, Death throws him into an even harsher trial. This time, he awakens in the body of a helpless infant. He cries endlessly, mourning the chance he lost to reclaim the money from the train station locker. But his new life as a baby doesn't last long. His parents are abusive, and though warning signs are clear, no one intervenes to save him. Powerless, Yijai dies when a social worker fails to investigate the violence happening in his family. Through this, Death drives the lesson home. Life itself is precious. Not everyone in the world even gets the chance to live it, like the baby who had no choice, no chance, no hope. But Yijai, still blind to the meaning of it all, only thinks of how to escape this game. Death, who has been able to read his thoughts all along, realizes that Yijai's obsession will only drag him deeper into ruin. Before casting him back into the world again, Death issues one final warning. If Yijai dares to kill someone else, Death itself will descend to intervene directly. The seventh body seemed to be Yijai's best chance at starting over. He awakened inside the life of a man who was not only handsome, but also famous, wealthy, and adored. After retrieving his stash of cash, the challenges of this new cycle began to unfold. While helping a friend run a cafe, Yijai unexpectedly encountered his ex-girlfriend Jisoo and discovered that she had just made her debut as a novelist. Through an article, he learned how Jisoo had overcome countless hardships to chase her dream. In an interview, she revealed that she could never have made it this far without the unwavering support of the boyfriend she loved deeply. Jisoo had never been unfaithful. The man Yijai once saw with her that night was her brother. His own insecurity had twisted the truth, leaving him with false resentment. After reading her book, Yijai approached Jisoo as a fan, asking for her autograph. They grew closer when he began sharing the details of his own deaths with her, presenting them as though they were fictional stories, crafted with vivid detail and raw emotion. Jisoo listened earnestly, even offering her thoughts. She believed the character of Death in his tale was far too cruel to the protagonist. Yijai exploded in agreement, shouting that Death was cruel, finally feeling his long-buried anguish validated. Jisoo laughed at how seriously he took his own story, but the mood turned emotional when she asked him the protagonist's name. Yijai could only respond that he hadn't decided yet. From then on, their conversations continued whenever Jisoo visited the cafe. Yijai shared his novel of deaths, chapter after chapter, until Jisoo finally asked why the protagonist never visited his mother. To this, Yi-jae answered that meeting her again would break him with unbearable sorrow. Though he longed to rebuild his relationship with Jisoo in his new body, his heart was still locked away. Watching Jisoo still grieving his death, Yi-jae realized the devastating impact his suicide had left on those he loved, especially his single mother. Visiting the memorial hall, he saw her quietly crying alone. His heart shattered, his grief cut deeper than ever before. Knowing he could die at any moment, Yi-jae decided not to waste time. He gave all of his money to his mother as a final gift, then went to Jisoo to finally reveal the truth. At first, he disguised his confession as another story, but the more he spoke, the more it became clear that it was their love story. He admitted that he thought she would be fine after he was gone, but now he knew he was wrong. With tears, he told her he still loved her. In that moment, Jisoo saw a shadow standing before her, and when Yi-jae finally spoke his real name, a car came crashing into them both, killing Jisoo instantly. Half-conscious, Yi-jae was stunned when he saw the driver, the same psychopath who had appeared, directly or indirectly, in every one of his reincarnations. He was the heir of the Taekang group, the elder brother of Yi-jae's very first body. He was also the one who sponsored the extreme sports stunt of the second body, with a promise of 3 billion won. He was the one who hired the fourth body to commit his crimes. He was the real hit-and-run driver who left a girl in a coma and paid off the fifth body to serve his prison sentence. And now, he was the killer who ended the seventh life in order to silence a witness. Afterward, he simply ordered one of his subordinates to take his place in prison for the accident. In the afterlife, Yi-jae wept bitterly for Jisoo's death, his heart shattered. He swore vengeance, blaming death itself for what had happened. But death explained coldly that both Jisoo and his seventh body had always been fated to be struck by that car on that very day. Refusing to waste time, Yi-jae demanded to be sent back into the world. His journey continued as he awoke in the body of Gyu Cheol, a deranged artist who created art using human blood. A brilliant yet twisted psychopath, Gyu Cheol had claimed many lives, yet the police had never uncovered his true identity. In his own story, Gyu Cheol was an overlooked artist whose works were dismissed as meaningless until the day he witnessed someone end their own life. That moment became his grotesque inspiration, sparking a series of macabre works tied to blood and death. But Gyu Cheol was already dying. Diagnosed with a brain tumor, doctors told him he had little time left to live. Yi-jae, however, didn't care. His mission was clear: kill Tu-woo to avenge Jisoo's death. It didn't take long before Yi-jae found an opportunity. Tu-woo himself became interested in purchasing one of Gyu Cheol's pieces. Their meeting was tense, charged with Yi-jae's hidden hostility. To Tu-woo, though, the man before him was just a stranger, hardly a threat. Yi-jae lost his chance to strike then, but now he had Tu-woo's home address. That night he lay in wait. Using his combat skills, Yi-jae quickly cornered Tu-woo, but the tables turned when Tu-woo pulled a gun. Without hesitation, he shot Yi-jae in the back, only to realize Yi-jae had anticipated this, wearing a bulletproof vest. The preparation gave him the upper hand, and he captured Tu-woo, dragging him to his studio. Yet fate betrayed him again. His body suddenly collapsed from the brain tumor, giving Tu-woo the time he needed to break free and reverse the situation. With arrogance, Tu-woo revealed his own origin story as a killer. It had begun the day he accidentally ran over a man in the middle of the street, the same man Yi-jae had seen on his way to that fateful job interview years ago. As the victim begged him for help, Tu-woo felt like a god, relishing the power to decide whether someone lived or died. From that moment, he discovered a twisted satisfaction in taking human lives. Shaking with manic excitement, Tu-woo demanded Yi-jae beg for mercy, but Yi-jae only spat in his face and laughed. As a final strike, he exposed the secret behind Jin Tai's death in the plane crash, that it had been orchestrated by Tu-woo himself to secure his inheritance. Tu-woo froze in shock at hearing his private truth laid bare, but he quickly regained his composure. That night, Yi-jae suffered one of the most excruciating deaths yet. And still, he laughed as he faced the end. because Yi-jae had never truly intended to kill Tu-woo in his 8th body. Instead, he had planted the seeds for Tu-woo's downfall. He knew the studio was filled with CCTV cameras, and everything Tu-woo did that night was now recorded. Death, meanwhile, sought to make Yi-jae feel real suffering. But Yi-jae's obsession with avenging Jisoo blinded him to every lesson that had been placed before him. Before casting him into the next round, Death issued a final, stern warning. If Yi-jae ever dared to kill someone again, he would be thrown straight into hell. The 9th body was Ji-hyung, a detective branded as a pathetic loser. His motto was simple: his own safety comes first. He refused to risk his life to protect the public, and this cowardice made him an outcast. Even his junior officers showed him no respect. But it wasn't without reason. Ji-hyung had once dreamed of following in his father's footsteps as a great policeman, only for his father to die in the line of duty. When Ji-hyung finally became an officer, his mother fell ill, consumed by fear that she would lose her son the same way. To ease her, Ji-hyung promised that no matter what happened, he would always prioritize his own survival. Now, Yi-jae seized Ji-hyung's body to push forward his vendetta against Tu-woo. On his very first day as a detective, Yi-jae subdued a rampaging young man wielding a blade in the street, only to discover the man was an ex-convict who had once betrayed him back in his 5th life. His act of heroism not only earned the admiration of his fellow officers, but also went viral across social media. Yi-jae soon led his team to Gyu Cheol's studio, uncovering damning evidence of the psychopath's grotesque art. But one piece he kept for himself: the final footage of Tu-woo killing Gyu Cheol. He knew corrupt police would destroy it, so instead, he leaked it to a news station. Yet the power of the Taekang Corporation was immense. Yi-jae found himself dragged before the commissioner, only to come face to face with Tu-woo, who had already bribed his superiors. Tu-woo tried to buy him off as well, but Yi-jae tore up the contract, spitting out the only thing he wanted: Tu-woo rotting in prison. Making the first move, Tu-woo courted reporters, twisting the narrative in his favor. He painted himself as a hero, forced to kill Gyu Cheol to stop his atrocities. The media only aired selective footage, showing Gyu Cheol dragging Tu-woo into the studio, and the public hailed Tu-woo as a savior. Untouchable, he basked in his false glory. But Yi-jae was ready. He unleashed every skill he had accumulated through his past lives, crafting a far more ruthless plan to bring Tu-woo down. Channeling Ju-hoon, the mastermind from his 4th body, he orchestrated a systematic kidnapping. He hijacked Tu-woo's private jet, planting a bomb aboard. Then, using the daredevil instincts of his 2nd body, he skydived out, leaving Tu-woo alone with a ticking clock. Through a video message, Yi-jae gave him 30 seconds to escape with a parachute before the jet exploded. Tu-woo managed to survive the blast, only to find Yi-jae waiting for him on the ground. There, silhouetted by rage, Yi-jae revealed his true self. Consumed by fury, he nearly struck the fatal blow until death descended, ready to drag him to hell for breaking the rule. At the last second, Yi-jae stopped himself, remembering Jisoo's words, clinging to the fragile hope that his story could still end in something other than damnation. As Yi-jae turned his back to walk away, Tu-woo, still tangled in his parachute, lunged with a hidden blade, but fate intervened. A sudden gust of wind threw him into the road, where a speeding truck slammed into him, crushing him instantly. Days later, Tu-woo woke up in a hospital bed, both legs amputated. His empire crumbled as Yi-jae's evidence finally reached the public, and the world he had built in lies came crashing down around him. After achieving his revenge, Yi-jae spent his days living as Detective Ji-hyung, now respected by his juniors who treated him like family. Ji-hyung's mother had died, and his old promise to always put himself first no longer applied. Yi-jae performed a truly brave act, sacrificing himself to save a junior, and felt immense pride in that choice. But death ridiculed that pride and asked him who he really was. Confused, Yi-jae could not answer, and death immediately sent him back to the world. He awoke in the body of an old homeless man. Watching the news about Detective Ji-hyung's death, how Ji-hyung was mourned as a hero, Yi-jae attended his own funeral for the first time. Only then did he begin to understand Death's question about his true self. Former colleagues and friends now looked at him as a filthy vagrant. Even the family of the person he'd saved treated him with contempt. That treatment taught him a harsh truth. Living as someone else did not make their accomplishments his own. All the gains he had earned through other bodies ultimately did not belong to him. Through this experience, Death intended to teach Yi-jae to value his own life, however grim it might be, because reality cannot simply be traded away. Yet Yi-jae still failed to fully grasp the meaning of his punishments. He slipped on a staircase while trying to avoid the memory crystal. His life was not spared. He now had only 2 bodies left to endure his sentence. Death warned him that the agony of the coming deaths would grow worse with each chapter, and that the final pain awaiting him would be beyond anything he could imagine. Already wearied of fate, Yi-jae resolved to end the 2 remaining lives quickly, arrogantly demanding that Death send him back to the world at once. The 11th body he received seemed to embody everything he had once wanted: a married man with a family, living an ordinary office worker life. But trouble struck when the man was suddenly laid off, and the family he loved left him. Adrift and purposeless, he chose to end his life. Yi-jae understood that despair. The sorrow of the body's owner piled onto him. Driven by that cumulative pain, Yi-jae ran into the street and was struck down by a speeding car. Shockingly, the 11th body turned out to be the same man Yi-jae had seen on the day of his original job interview, the same person who had awakened the darker side in Tuwoo. In the end, Yi-jae's decision to kill himself had been the catalyst that set this chain of chaos in motion. The suffering he experienced was, tragically, the result of his own acts. Death observed that humans consistently squander opportunities, believing death is the best escape from suffering, when in fact that belief is false. Demotivated and defeated, Yi-jae planned to give up his last chance, only to wake up in the body of his own mother. After absorbing his mother's memories through the crystal orb, Yi-jae realizes he never truly knew her. He learns of the hardships she endured raising him as a single parent, how she was shattered when the man she loved died. At the time, Yi-jae didn't understand that the one thing that kept her going was the presence of her beloved child. His mother never complained. She worked tirelessly to provide and cared for him with unwavering love. Her trials deepened when she lost her job, yet she pressed on without surrender. Through these memories, Yi-jae is ashamed of his own blindness. How foolish he'd been not to be grateful for such an extraordinary mother. When the memory reaches the moment of his death, the pain and loss she felt wash over Yi-jae as well. He understands then that this is the worst suffering Death had warned him about. The agony of losing the person you love most. An ache time cannot heal. What once seemed like punishment becomes, for Yi-jae, a reason to keep living and to try to fulfill his mother's unfulfilled wishes. His mother had always wanted to return to the mountain she used to visit with his father when she was young. Yi-jae sets out to make that wish come true. Though his body grows weak and the climb is hard, he refuses to give up, and his efforts are rewarded when the summit greets him with a beautiful, warm vista. Yi-jae spends 32 years in his mother's body, remembering the people he loved. Surviving alone like that is not easy, but he endures with a fierce resolve, having promised himself never to give up again. In life he had always been afraid the world wouldn't recognize him, afraid of being left behind, afraid of rejection, and so he had chosen to end his life. Only after dying did he realize that life itself is an opportunity, and that the pain he'd thought defined him was only a small part of a much larger whole. After a long waiting, death comes for Yi-jae and brings him back to judgment. He never imagined his punishment would take so long, and throughout the remainder of his existence he keeps wondering what he will say when he faces death. Now kneeling before death, he begs for one more chance to live as himself. All he asks is to hold his mother one more time. Death tells him he has won. Yi-jae has endured and avoided final damnation. He has served the punishment in full. What remains is God's judgment. But before that final reckoning, death has one last test. Producing a single bullet, she offers Yi-jae one final chance and leaves the outcome to fate. She loads the shell into the pistol, spins the cylinder, and explains that if the bullet aligns and is fired, Yi-jae's wish will be granted. If not, his fate will be in God's hands. The story ends with Yi-jae pulling the trigger on himself, and the miracle happens. He is sent back to the moment before he jumped from the rooftop. His phone rings. This time crying, he answers his mother's call. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.